You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Once again in our in the live room here on Force 13 Live, covering two tropical cyclones, significant developments in the Wild West, as it appears to be, the Western Pacific. Tropical storm Infa, which is on the screen right now, and Cempaka, which is very quickly, well, not quickly, but it's just stalled off the coast of China and will eventually wash ashore there, with warnings out for both of these systems, little and large it would seem. Infa very large there on that imagery, approaching the Daioto Islands of Japan, and Sinpakka, which is passing to the southwest of Macau. My name's Nathan Foy. For this hour of coverage, we've got, interestingly, more people than we had than our last stream. We have Kenneth, Xiao Chen, Kobe, Ryan Leahy, Noah, Ryan Knack, two Ryans today, Josh and Z. Good morning / evening to all of you, because we're dealing with all different time zones. Hello.
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 Well then, whilst we're looking at Infa, some of our screen sharers, Xiao Chen and Kenneth, you're both looking at Sinpakka right now, so I'm going to throw it to you for a little bit so that you can run us through what's going on there. That's the more urgent threat to land, isn't it?
Indeed, it is more closer to land. Right now, it's only around 100 kilometers from the nearest land. So here it is, the latest radar of Sinpakka. You can see a pretty compact core with only around 150 kilometers of the core size. Which you can see it's indeed very small, but with a rather broad spiral ring bands affecting the extensively affecting the coast of Guangdong. Here it is, and recently from this radar, you can see especially strong western eye wall, which in Hong Kong radar it's been reported that there is lightning activities and eye wall, which can obviously signaling a more further intensification. Right now we're having Sinpakka 70 miles per hour and a pressure of 984 millibars based off surface observation and radar velocity. And it is moving north very slowly because the steering current is currently not obvious, so it just pushing northward because of its intensity itself.
Now, we were looking at it this morning, local time, and it seemed to be really wrapping itself around and getting its act together. Are we perhaps a little bit surprised that it's not already a typhoon?
Actually, I think based off radar velocity in Yangjiang, 34 meters per second has been found at 3 kilometers aloft, which that translates to around 70 miles per hour at around 10 Z. So as radar velocity indicating 70 right now, with it is an edge scan because of the range of radar, I wouldn't be surprised we may be going to typhoon status after a little bit discussion. After that, we may go with 75 miles per hour. Not very surprised. And yeah, pretty much the rapid intensification forecast trend is also being expected by our forecast. And yeah, everything seems is very rapidly ongoing, but is still within our forecast that is rapidly intensifying, and the threat to land is remaining very significant.
Looking at satellite imagery at this point, you can see on the visible how the storm's been gathering itself today. Xiao Chen, what are we looking at there on your screen? Another radar variant.
That is the Yangjiang velocity map presented by Kenneth earlier. You can see that we got 27.5 meters per second to 34.5 meters per second winds at around 3.1 kilometers altitude. This suggests that the system is near typhoon intensity.
All right, there it is. So that was how long ago? Must be only about an hour.
No, it's actually from 20 minutes ago.
Oh, much
It's
more.
from 6:48 p.m. local time.
All right. And Z, you're also showing us a screen right now. There's some infrared imagery of both of those storms, and they've still got on the southern side of both of them. They've got big long tails of, um, storm activity and moisture. Um,
Yes, I am aware of that. Seems that Infa is starting to make some more compact core here, and it seems to be a threat to Okinawan islands in that region as the outer bands are going through there as of when this radar was captured.
Yep, and indeed there are gale advisories out for Okinawa and northward, all the way up to Kagoshima right now. It's closest to the Daiото Islands, and we'll be skipping about these two storms quite a bit during this hour because they're both land threats. Sinpakka the most immediate, but Infa could potentially be a massive typhoon. I don't know if it's still stage 6 on the CDPS. It was on our last broadcast. Do we know?
Yes, it is. From the CDPS calculation in the morning, it is CDPS stage 6. I'll say it is CDPS stage 6 currently. For Infa towards Japanese islands, and it is high end stage 4 for Sinpakka.
So still stage 4, but could be stage 5 soon.
Maybe depends on the intensification trend and the size of the wind field. Because currently it's still pretty small.
Yep. Noah, you're also with us today. You've been looking at this situation as well. You were with us last night. What do you think about either of these storms right now?
Um, well, they have developed pretty much in the ways I expected them to do. Champaka has been named shortly after we went off the air, and has been pretty much on a pretty intense. I don't know if it's rapid intensification, but a quick intensification phase, and is now about 65 to 75 miles per hour, somewhere in this vicinity, and looks with these centralized deep convective bursts around negative 80s just near the core, which is shown by radar, indicates that it's currently further intensifying. These big hot towers near the core, compact core, is usually a sign of a rapid intensification phase, while Infa has this pretty big eye. So with this storm, I would expect a more gradual intensification as the eye is so big, and it still looks pretty disorganized around the eye. There's no consolidated CDO structure, just some bursts that rotate around the eye.
Yeah, it doesn't look
Yeah.
amazing. Kenneth, you're now showing us the warning map for China there, which I think is quite important. The different typhoon warnings that are out there. They're color coded from blue to yellow to orange. Do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. I'll read out the currently latest warnings. So currently, starting from Hong Kong and Macau, signal number 3 is still in force, and it's expected to remain at night. And in China, currently orange typhoon warnings in effect in Taishan City, Guangdong, yellow typhoon warning in Zhuhai City, Maoming, Yangjiang, and Jiangmen City, all in Guangdong Province. And for blue typhoon warning is currently in effect in Guangzhou City, Zhongshan City, Shenzhen, Dongguan, Zhanjiang, Huizhou, and then last but not least, we also have blue typhoon warning in Hainan province.
So that's about the extent of the warnings there right now,
Yes.
stretching on quite a large
Yeah,
amount of
quite
coastline.
extensive areas all the way from the Zhejiang Delta region, from the western Guangdong, and also Hainan province.
Okay, just taking a look at the geocolor imagery. This is a wide shot of everything that's going on there right now, and you can see the extent of both of those tropical cyclones. We've also got, I want to try and get everyone a few moments of speaking time if you want it. Kobe, you're also here. It's your first stream with us, actually, I believe. Over there somewhere.
Yes.
Oh, we can barely hear you. We'll come back to you. We've also got Ryan Leahy with us. Feels like it's been a while since we last spoke. Nice to see you once again. What do you make of these storms right now?
Everyone's said everything that I was going to say, really. I don't have much to add.
Yes, well, I guess the main questions right now are about how much Sinpakka is going to intensify before its landfall, and then how far west will it go, and then Infa is, it's an interesting one, this, because you've got the GFS model which still wants it down into the 930s. We've still got it at 983, and at this point, all the GFS runs, if they were going to be correct, it would have to be probably in the 960s, 950s by now. So is it really going to get down towards those lower numbers, anyone?
Well,
That low.
No one?
That seems a bit
Oh.
too outlandish. Sorry.
That's Josh there. Hello, nice to see you here again. Tell
Hello.
us about it.
930 seems to be a little bit low at this, a little bit too low at this stage. The structure of the storm, from what I have been looking at, I don't have any decent imagery up at this stage, but it seems it's developing, I would like to say nicely, but it's not developing fast enough to get to that sort of intensity. It's got about 4 days before it does start interacting with Taiwan, but its size is definitely not going to help itself. There is shear in the vicinity of the storm. If this was a much smaller storm, it should be able to dodge most of the shear as it starts getting closer to Okinawa and Miyakojima. But because of how large it is going to be, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for the storm to dodge that. So I think the GFS might be going a little bit too far on the storm. 930 seems too low. I'd say something in the region of high 940s at the absolute minimum. More likely in the region of mid 950s or 60s. Still a very powerful storm and one not to be taken lightly.
4
Yeah,
days
and
is a long time for it, though.
I also wanted to add something on that. Yesterday I thought, yeah, maybe the GFS usually has a problem with resolving rapid intensification as it really happens. So it has a more linear rapid intensification trend rather than what really happens, that the storm blows up the convection and then plummets down and has a pretty steep and not at all linear intensification trend. I thought that might happen, that we have the storm have a much steeper intensification rate towards the lower numbers if it goes well. But now with this big eye, I don't know. I don't really know about rapid intensification occurring soon. But I mean, it also has 4 days. 4 days is a long time for a tropical cyclone to intensify. So it's certainly possible, but more unlikely that it reaches those lower numbers than, for example, yesterday.
Certainly is. Kenneth, you're showing us the bigger picture right now, I think.
Indeed, this is a CIMSS upper level analysis. So you can see the wind barb is been extremely intense, especially in this region. At around 25 north, 150 east. You can see the outflow is especially strong for Infa eastward. As well as you can see, the wind shear actually did weaken quite a lot in recent frames. And as you can see, it is warping around, trying to warping around, being more symmetric in size, being less shear. And you can see there's some extra outflow given by this upper level low near Shandong. Pretty much it is giving extra outflow and not giving much share to Infa right now, which multiple outflow channels do foster intensification. And you can see here the divergence. In before it is pretty much an inhibiting factor because of the upper level convergence, but which now it gives an extra this up level convergence gives an extra channel for the two for outflow of a tropical cyclone, which also gives it well in intensification. So here is the microwave imagery that is around 4 hours old. You can see it has a half formative eye wall currently still developing, trying to, which and before it really hasn't do much in mid level. It's heavily gain shear and only have a very low level center and heavily lopsided convection. But now, the lower level eye wall, as shown in 36 gigahertz image, it has been very mature, a low level core already. But at the mid level and higher levels, it still needs way more effort. And I think 4 days isn't a big question. Isn't a too big question, but as I said before, it has a very broad size, as shown in this rate, as shown in this weather chart. Actually, this weather chart you can show that actually it is pretty large indeed.
Yeah.
With you can see its influence pretty much almost like 10 degrees across, which means it's really broad. And it can resist a bit more on external environmental change, but also that would do equivalently the same as the deepening rate, which will also be not that rapid.
And it's probably going to get a little bit bigger yet, certainly in the wind field when we look at the JTWC forecast graphic on the right hand side of your screen right now. At some point on its approach to Taiwan and when it moves through the southern Ryukyu Islands of Japan there, that is an enormous wind field. I'm trying to compare it to something, but that is, I think those spaces are 2 degrees, so we're talking about a tropical storm wind field that's just over 6 degrees wide.
Wow.
Which is quite a bit.
6
Jumbo.
degrees. That's 3 times as big as the entire size of Felicia.
Wonderful.
And also, we have just coming in, the 12 Zulu ATCF indicates both storm is now 55 knot for JTWC.
What did they
55
have previously?
knots.
Were they lower until now?
They used to be 50 knot, and now both of them are 55 knot.
And just to swap over on our right panel, the forecast for Sinpakka, there it is. So we're not much the wiser compared to our last stream. Massive cone, although I think it's shifted a little bit eastwards there, hasn't it? Or less west, I suppose you could put it.
In recent frames there may be a little bit of fluctuation in movement. As I said before, it's moving very slow. It maybe has a little bit of eastward jog, and it is a very large wait and see moment to see if the slightly eastward jog, the northeastward movement, will be sustained or not, because it is exactly what China Meteorological Administration is forecasting, which there's a bit of northeastward jog before turning back towards the northwest. and that certainly can affect the point of landfall, which currently the forecast point of the landfall site is currently Jiangmen City.
If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air this hour, you can send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It's the first time I've actually mentioned that, so please do send them in. We'll field any of your questions. Usually have it quite lively. Josh, you're showing us a GFS run?
This is the GFS 6C run for from Weatherbell. This is Taiwan zoom here, and I feel like this gives us a really high resolution look at what this storm is going to be, considering it is looking like it's going to be affecting Taiwan. So at this stage, this is Wednesday, July 21, local time in Taiwan. I presume they are on UTC 8. And you can already see here as this approaches the Ryukyu Islands, the southern Ryukyu Islands, I believe. Miyakojima here already receiving winds of around 65 to 70 knots there. That is typhoon. And smaller islands through here, I'm not 100% sure of the name here, 80 knot winds, and they're sustained. So very strong winds as this storm moves through, and regular winds in excess of 80 to 85 knots especially in the southern and the eastern eye wall of the system, which seems to be quite powerful. But then the storm slightly weakens as it heads towards Taiwan. The GFS has been consistent on this, and that might be due to the land interaction because of how large the storm is. And this is where I can't find any examples of stuff that happens here. It seems like the storm goes through some kind of, I don't know, eye wall replacement cycle or something, and it develops an eye about half the size of Taiwan. It's colossal, it is. And you can see it here with the eye wall mainly around here. It's huge, and then it seems to go into mainland China around Fuzhou or Zhangshao.
Well, landfalls tend to do that sometimes, especially
blow apart a storm.
Especially places that are slightly mountainous. On the other side, it's really disrupted and basically forces nihil replacement and tries to get itself around a much bigger eye. It's happened before. I'm sure there's plenty of examples that I can't think of right now in all the basins.
Yeah. A little bit of trivia. Taiwan's highest peaks in the northern parts are above 2,000 meters high, which will totally shred this storm. That's like putting a finger on a cheese grater. Not good for storms or fingers.
Okay. So there it is. That's on latest forecast run there. That is the 6C.
6 Zulu, yes. I also have one for Sinpakka, however I say it, but that's not as high res, and it's a little bit zoomed out, but then again the storm is tiny.
We'll get that up on our views in a few moments. Let's see what else we're looking at right now. Let's try and get some more imagery up. Well, let's just spare a thought for Felicia right now. There it is on the latest satellite imagery. It is pretty awful now. We still have it. Well, the 6C fix still had it as a high-end category 2. What do we think it is now?
65 miles per hour.
65 miles.
Looks like a tropical storm to me.
It has an exposed low-level center, so I don't know how it's still a category 2 hurricane.
Alright, enough of that. Let's move back to the Western Pacific, which is where the most important action is right now. So Sinpakka, which is just about to enter nightfall there, so it's still very close to the... Is it moving slightly west?
Latest microwave imagery just came in for Sinpakka. Zhao Chen just posted. Might be worth looking at.
Oh, let's take a look at this.
I have it on my screen.
Yeah. Oh. So what's that telling us?
It actually matches with radar.
Okay. And Ryan Knack, you're there, I think, as well. What's your thoughts on that?
I was just comparing the microwave about an hour ago. It has significantly improved in terms of the color that I've seen, like a much more higher reflectivity rates. So that will be one to look out for.
So it looks like a sure sign of intensification to me when we look at that image. That's ongoing.
And many people actually compare Sinpakka's structure to Hygo's last year, and actually its structure is already surpassing Hygo's last year. However, the winds from radar doesn't indicate so. It'll take a bit longer for the winds to catch up, and plus the Sinpakka is a much smaller system compared to Hygo's, and with much lower moving speed. It's actually not really moving at all at this point. It's just wobbling around in place.
It is rather. It's moving very slowly. I think it is moving slightly west, but it's neither here nor there really.
What's the long-term future of Sampaka after it makes landfall?
Anyone's guess.
So
Kinda
the
interesting.
the current forecast after landfall is that it will firstly move westward first and weaken significantly due to land interaction. But it is forecast that it will make, because our forecast is it will make landfall, and due to its small size and land interaction, it can just drop off very significantly, and pretty much barely a tropical depression, tropical storm, as it really exit back on sea, and as Infa approaching, Fujiwara effect would just take Cempaka away, because the outflow of Infa will become a source of shear after Cempaka exits back to sea and inhibits further intensification. And eventually, as Fujiwara effect kicks in, they spin each other at a geometric center, and Cempaka, being very less influential, will just be being absorbed by Infa, I think. And I think the location that current forecasts have a bit better consensus that it will exit right east of Hainan province.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm also showing something on my stream. I just wanted to dissect the upper level environment of both storms in the Western Pacific.
Yep. Let's get this. Go ahead.
So yeah, this is the GFS 60 run, 200 millibar wind, but 18 hours out. Here is Infa, and here's Sampaka. Also pretty interesting. It deepens Sampaka all the way down to 973 millibars in about 18 hours. So that shows that the GFS is expecting a rapid intensification phase.
It's been saying that for quite a few runs, though.
Yeah. And what we see for Sinpakka, pretty broad anticyclonic weak flow, so that's a favorable environment. A little bit of different story for Infa. We have this long elongated trough called the PV streamer, and that is imposing shear on the western side of Infa with this big outflow band which is connected to a monsoon trough that's, I think, should be around here, which is causing the big monsoon in the Philippines right now. Sinpakka is also connected to a monsoon trough. But when you go out a few hours later, wait a minute. So yeah, that's 66 hours out. Wait, So now that
Yeah.
you can see this trough, this PV streamer is backing off out of the scene, is moving this way, and there's pretty much no significant shear in the environment of Infa, just this broad anticyclonic outflowing flow, divergent flow, while Sinpakka, which is now in the Gulf of Tonkin, is shared by the by the outflow of Infa. And how much this PV streamer, this trough here, backs up depends on how much negative potential vorticity we have in the upper levels of the tropical cyclone. So the more intense a tropical cyclone is, the more outflow, the more negative potential vorticity in the 200 millibar level it creates. And that erodes away this small PV streamer, that small trough. So it pretty much depends on how intense is the storm right now, with creating its own better shear environment later on. Also, we have a new tropical cyclone from this monsoon trough
Wonderful.
at 991 in the GFS at this time.
And the GFS, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at the 6C run, has Sinpakka surviving.
Yeah, it's still in the Gulf of
You are
Tonkin.
correct.
I mean, beyond
That-
that.
Oh,
Have the run up right now.
Okay.
Hang on a second. Let me get straight back to the wind speeds here. Just deviated to up level winds. The immediate future for Sampaka is to move inland over China, but when you start getting into hour 96, that sort of area, hours 80, you see this storm here, which is Sampaka. I can't believe it survives the torture it will face moving through the Chinese area through here, land interaction, and it emerges, and then it starts to intensify, not rapidly, but it definitely intensifies enough to get back to tropical storm status, although that is a very messy tropical storm to say the least, and orbits around Hainan, and then goes into, and then just gets absolutely sucked up into Infa's vortex, and will probably die from there. That's an hour 132. If I zoom out a little bit and I take a look at the more sort of wider area of China, this is the 10-meter wind speeds that we're looking at here. You can see Infa still here, and it survives for a little bit longer, and probably will go make a landfall around Taiwan as a tropical depression, according to the GFS. And towards the end of the run, it's still surviving. You can see the remnant low pressure system here moving through the Ryukyu Islands, but at this point, it's nothing more than a remnant low. So it does survive, but it's not going to be anything significant.
Fascinating.
I don't know what the
So
GFS is pulling.
We had a
So
question.
essentially,
Sorry.
GFS is coming to a result similar to what it originally predicted. It may, like its original prediction back in the 12s, it's going back to the Taiwan Strait, and now it's doing a similar thing, making a landfall on the west coast of Taiwan.
We had a question. What is the percentage chance of Hong Kong having sustained tropical storm force winds tomorrow?
Not that likely. That will only be really but I'll say that gusty winds will affecting gusty gale force wind will affect Hong Kong for some uh exposed and higher elevation areas, because the size of the core is really small. The chance really getting some pretty extensive tropical storm force winds, I think, is not likely. But that will also depends on how's the slow in movement. And really, actually, that would also depends on how northeast it will jog in the recent frames. If it's furthermore northeast, then it will be a higher chance, but otherwise, not really likely.
Ryan, you're showing us some of the model spread right now.
Yes, there is still a significant amount of spread as in where the system is going to end up. In case of Josh, he sent the GFS solution, which puts it at the Gulf of Tonkin, if I remember. But generally speaking, majority of the models are still calling for a recurvature towards the east. We're talking the CTCX, we're talking the GFS, the HWRF, a little bit weird over here, but we're going to see that recurvature towards the northeast. This doesn't forecast up to 5 days actually, if I'm not wrong. So that curvature is probably going to happen, and it's going to be a little bit of a problem for southern China and Hainan Island as it passes over.
Yeah, quite
Actually,
clearly.
I have a little bit of interesting news here. Has anyone seen the latest HWRF run on Sinpakka?
Uh-oh. This can't be
It's
good.
not bad. It's not too bad as in wind speeds, which is still a problem, but it is a little bit of a problem with how far east it goes. It sort of hugs and traces out the coastline of China right up until it reaches sort of this. I forget the name of the peninsula there. But the peninsula that goes out to Hainan, you can see it sort of just hugs the coast, and it recurves. Oh, by the end of the run, it sort of looks like it is curving around right on the coastline here. So, if the HWRF is true, all areas between Hong Kong and right down to the northern parts of Hainan are going to receive tropical storm force winds, if not stronger, from this storm for the next 5 days or so. And also very heavy rainfall from this system, considering how slowly it will be moving. That's big news.
The latest HWRF run made the track further north. The last HWRF run thinks that the system will stall off the coast of Guangdong for 3 to 4 days before traveling southeast towards Luzon.
Gee.
The HWRF is a funny model when it comes to intensity, but I tend to find it doesn't do too bad on track.
There's a question there about will 2021 be more active than 2020 in the Western Pacific?
Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, it already is, basically.
I wouldn't put it past the Western Pacific with this storm train that we have just had.
I mean,
I mean,
yeah.
our. Yeah, go ahead, Lee.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, that this is. I mean, we didn't even have a storm, a Western Pacific storm in July last year.
Yeah.
We're already getting some this year. We already had like 2, 3 at this point. I think. No, actually, I think this is just the 2 for July so far. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that and we had a Cat 5 in April, so it's a completely different season for the Western Pacific by the looks of it. I mean, still might be below average, but I think it's going to be a lot more active than last year.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that I think our seasonal forecast is calling for what? 27 storms?
I can't even remember now what we're calling for.
So
If not
27
higher.
would be the average.
27's the average in a year. But the models, the long range, this has been coming for some time. Has been saying for late July that it would be a mess just like this, really. And we'll probably see quite a few more storm formations. In fact, I think long range is showing a few more storms popping up in similar places in a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, it makes sense when you look at MJO, which is currently directly over the Westpac. And I looked at the GFS, which has a little bit of bias towards moving the MJO towards the Westpac, but it still shows that until the end of July, we're going to have favorable conditions on the upper level side with the MJO in the Western Pacific. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have more storms popping up in the Western Pacific in the next few days and weeks.
All right.
Nathan,
Yes.
you reckon it'd be fine to touch on the south west monsoon for the Philippines with the amount of rain that they're getting?
We will in a moment. I just want to touch on, though, once again, the Eastern Pacific and those two storms that we currently have. Felicia looking awful. Guillermo is also still there. Anyone just want to pass a small thought on Guillermo and how that's been looking? Is it fighting back?
No, both
No.
storms has been right now it's been really weakening. It's really struggling because of the very unfavorable conditions that as you can see stratocumulus is currently they're moving into stratocumulus in satellite imagery, which shows that very unfavorable conditions with cool sea surface temperature and stable air conditions, which you can which see in latest rain Felicia just have their convection dome. um, Guillermo, as I see in recent frames in shortwave infrared imagery, uh, the the LCTs has been fully exposed, leaving a
Oh
convection
dear.
at the southeast. It's really been suffering from sheer low sea surface temperature and dry air. And by the way, we have released our latest 12 UTC fix from the analyst team. So Felicia, we have significantly downgraded to 85 miles per hour and a pressure of 980 millibars.
That's
Due
about
to the
right.
significant downgrade for Guillermo, with due to weakening, we also downgraded it to 45 miles per hour, 1003 millibars. For Infa, we stay at 65 miles per hour, 983 millibars, and for Sinpakka, it's continued to intensify. We've given it at 70 miles per hour and a pressure of 984 millibars.
Yeah.
Station on Isla Clarion has got sustained winds of 24 knots right now from Guillermo, and I think Isla Clarion is probably within 100 miles from the center, which suggests to me is that this is it's not a well-performing system at this stage.
Yeah, not great. Ethan, of course, would be devastated. Let's go back to the Western Pacific then. And Josh, you wanted to talk about the rainfall accumulations en masse, really, across the whole region.
And it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
Well, here is the latest GFS rainfall for the next. I've only got 168 hours loaded because the 6Z run is just coming in right now. Oh, hang on, I've got the full run rather. I'm misreading stuff. But we are looking out for very significant rainfall totals. Peak rainfall totals just west of Metro Manila will be around 27 inches over the next 7 days, which is quite phenomenal to say the least. That is a very heavy amount of rainfall. It seems like conditions will ease slightly for about a week, with still around 25 inches of rain a week for parts of the Philippines, especially around Metro Manila and in more higher elevations. We could be seeing totals between 10 and 15 inches. And then it does seem to die down slightly, but then towards the end of it, that southwest monsoon really starts pumping again, and we start to see totals towards the end of the forecast period skyrocket to around 40 inches per week. And that actually does include bubbles of 20 inches for Metro Manila. And towards the end of the run, we're looking at 45 inches for a week, which is incredibly heavy rainfall.
Very, very far out, though. But certainly in the shorter range, that current burst is going to be causing huge amounts of rainfall. I mean, I was going to say that the rain pattern looks suspiciously like the Philippine Islands when in fact it is. It's quite hard to make out the outlines because of all that rainfall.
Just before we transition to something else, the maximum rainfall for Metro Manila in the next 2 weeks will be 1,779 millimeters. No, rather, that's for the entire run here. For Metro Manila, it is 1,124 millimeters, but for some isolated mountainous terrain, upwards of 1,700 millimeters for the next 2 weeks, which is ridiculous rainfall quantities.
Okay, so that's a look there. It's going to be a very wet few weeks for the northern part of the Philippines in particular. A question that came in there: will Sinpakka reach Category 1 high end before landfall? That's what I can't remember who it was last night that was suggesting it would get to 90 miles per hour. What do we think?
Yes. The last forecast half day ago, we have it at 90 miles per hour peak, and pretty much it's been. I think it's pretty accurate as of now. Forecasting the current trends, with 10 miles per hour over 6 hour period. I think our forecast will more or less remain pretty much the same in terms of intensity forecast. I think we're doing pretty
So
well on that. And for
I
track
believe
forecast, I'll expect a more northward drop, and make landfall over a more eastern part of, not Yanjiang like what JWC said. I'll forecast a more eastward landfall site like near Jiangmen City. That's what I think. Pretty much more or less the same right now.
Concerning.
I believe the China Meteorological Administration have upgraded Cempaka to a severe tropical storm, right? 50 knots.
It's a little bit overdue.
Yeah.
And we're looking at some other imagery there as well. Water vapor imagery over the last few hours, and again, Sinpakka looking very good on the very latest frames there.
It has improved.
Another question that came in: what's the worldwide cyclone season predictions for ACE? That one's not easy to predict. I've no idea, honestly. But there are the two Western Pacific storms right now. Did you want to offer a comment on that, Noah?
Just wanted to ask, does somebody know how much ACE we already have accumulated worldwide so far?
I think it's about 130 units off the top of my head worldwide. I'm not sure if that includes southern hemisphere storms.
Okay,
Let me
130
check
units.
here.
We have 316.1 right now.
All right. For ACE right now, for the northern hemisphere, we're at 67.4. The average is 97, so a little bit below average for the northern hemisphere for ACE, but globally for the calendar year, I am not sure.
And I've lost my web page
If
that
we
would tell
use
me.
the traditional way, we can actually see that we are actually nearly 13 points above average for global ACE, counting 2020 to 2021 Southern Hemisphere season.
Surrogate would have contributed a lot to that.
I'm sure it would.
Yes, it contributed a whole 42 points.
I'm also sure that
I wonder
Hold on a
how much
minute.
Felicia would have contributed.
Hold on a minute.
Tiny
What?
system, but probably not much more than, I wouldn't say any more than 10, maybe
No, but
12 years.
storm size doesn't matter for ACE.
It doesn't? You learn
just
something every
matters the intensity. I think
It
when
probably
you
should
have
matter though.
I'm not sure, but I think one ACE point for 100 knots, 6 hour point.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Also, just coming in, HKO updated Senpaka to a strong STS, strong tropical storm
Yes,
whatsoever.
they have also followed China and upgraded to severe tropical storm.
I think
It's
And
likely the
Nathan, can you please
JMA
give
might
me
probably
a
go
screen
with
share?
We've just got it on here now, looking at radar again.
Yes, you can see that the convection tower wrapped around the center, and the eye wall is now a lot more defined and with stronger reflectivity. But we can see on satellite imagery that the CDO is further strengthening, and an eye is expected to form very soon. to appear on IR soon, if not too soon.
Certainly looking very decent on that radar imagery.
I have a question. How strong do you reckon Sinpakka could get if everything went well for it?
Honestly, don't know.
90 miles per hour.
90.
More, I would say more.
Or
If-
surprise us with a major.
Yeah, well, I think
Don't
if,
do it.
if everything went well for it, then
95?
yes.
Yeah.
But it probably won't have perfect conditions because of its big brother over there.
It sure is a big brother.
A question from Cyclone Epic: what are the chances of HKO issuing gale or storm signal number 8?
Frequently asked question number 1. So, right now, Hong Kong Observatory didn't say anything about the chances of issuing signal A. They just said signal A. The chance of issuing signal A is not big. Tonight, I agree because the current conditions are not the winds are not really strengthening too much, and this and as mentioned before, the size of Sinpakka is really small. With overall the core diameter as shown in radar not exceeding 150 kilometers, which means the radius it needs to be within 100 kilometers before we can really feel gale force winds. So I overall think that unless Sinpakka really move very northeastward, unless it really not very likely that Hong Kong Observatory will issue signal 8, to be honest.
Yeah, I
If
don't
in
see it
terms of
happening.
the local wind strengthening weight, no.
I add on a
Just-
little. There is a buoy just south of Hong Kong. It's actually recording sustained winds of only 35 miles per hour.
Okay.
I'm just looking
What
at
elevation is that?
It's a buoy, so it's surface.
I'm just looking at radar
Elevation
imagery.
would matter a lot.
Josh, go ahead.
Oh, all right. I thought I was muted for a second, but just looking at radar imagery, I don't have the best radar imagery up, but the yellows or the 40 dBz readings seem to be totally wrapping around the eye now. The eye still seems to be filled with some debris, so I reckon a typhoon upgrade would be incredibly generous at this point. So I'd be happy to stick with 60 knots. But if this is obviously an eye wall. If that does totally wrap around and really start to thicken out, then the eye will be able to clear quite quickly. I'm not sure how much wind shear Sinpakka is under, but especially in a low shear environment, this will be able to clear out an eye quite fast, I reckon.
Regarding wind shear of Cempaka, earlier GFS and HWRF thinks it's around 10 to 15 knots. However, from what we observed, it seems to be a little of northwestern movement is canceling out a bit, and the actual shear on the system, the actual relative shear on the system is actually around 5 to 10 knots. So basically, it's not bringing any effect to the system's intensification.
Well, that's very good news for Sinpakka, but very bad news for the Chinese coastline. I also have another thing that I seem to be noticing. This might be a banding feature, but is this a sign of a double eye wall that we could be seeing developing? I mean, it seems like we have a banding feature more towards the north, and then we've got another banding feature just sliding in behind it. Whether that's the radar struggling a little bit, or
I think
that
it's just the radar, the banding. I think it's just the banding. It's just banding and not really a double eye wall. Because it is really still rapidly developing not really that. Also, from the from the cyclic history, there's never a storm I've seen before with that small size, rapidly developing a double eye wall. I've never seen that, so highly unlikely, to
It's
be
the first
honest.
time for everything.
Well,
Oh,
I really don't think that will be the case.
Thank you for clearing that up. Thanks a lot.
There's another
One thing that
question.
I want to point out
Okay.
is that so the bands are not detached from the eye wall, which means that so there isn't a moat yet. So before a moat forms, double eye wall could not develop and eventually go into eye wall replacement cycle. So this isn't eye wall replacement cycle.
So there you have it. Is there a chance Sinpakka might become like Vicente or Hato?
Okay. This is doing rapid classification, which both Vicente and Hato also did that, but they have a base intensity at a much higher rate, because Cempaka is a newly formed storm and then boom up like it goes. But for Vicente is a moderate tropical storm and then boom up to severe typhoon. Force 30 has it at category 3. Uh, Hato similarly from a category 1 typhoon and then rapidly boom to category 4 in database and strike Macau and China. Yeah, it's doing similar vibes of the rapid intensification trend in South China Sea, which we should be alarming that is occurring more and more frequently. But I think the best analog of it will be better be Higgos instead of Vicente Hato. But yeah, nonetheless, it's doing similar vibes of. It just go all
This is wow.
And I remember doing the updates on Vicente as well back in 2012, my first year of Storm updates. I believe from differences in updates, I think it was a category 1 and then the next morning it was a 4.
From JGWC it is category 1 at 12C and category 4 suddenly at 18C. But as I reviewed from surface observations, category 4 is obviously too high. And we have it at 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 946
Now,
or 41 millibar. Yeah, something like that. But it's
right.
still very strong system. It was.
We
What were
have
the
to finish
surface
in a moment, but we got another question here. Why is Infa's tail so long? That's a good question.
I love the
connected to
terminal.
monsoon trough. That's the answer.
What was that?
It's connected to a monsoon trough too, so that's why it looks like it has this giant tail.
It's beautiful on visible imagery, that's for sure.
It has good convergence and intense outflow at the eastern side, which foster cloud generation, which is what you see that the large clouds cover the eastern side is due to very good convergence and divergence due to the environments. And that's why with a good inflow from southwest monsoon and good decent outflow at the very intense outflow from the up level low, probably this is tropical high. And that is the very pretty impressive clouds feature
Is it going to
east of
detach
Infa.
from that, though?
I think it will soon in the future, somewhat. I mean, but not really fully detached. But also one more thing is that at the similar place that of the clouds of the more eastern side of the current cloud, it is expected that there will be one more storm that will forecast to form after 3 to 6 days. It will be infested probably after 2 to 3 days and becoming a tropical storm after 5 days. As of the latest forecast, we've given it a 60% formation chance in the next 5 days.
Well, that's another cause for concern that we'll have to track later on. I'd like to thank our team. Kenneth, anything else just quickly?
Okay, finishing off. Here I will summarize the current current situation in Infa and Sinpakka. Currently, Infa and Sinpakka is also a strong tropical storm with winds of 65 miles per hour for Infa and 70 miles per hour for Sinpakka. Japan Meteorological Agency has issued some warnings to southern Japanese islands, like wave warnings and winds warnings, and also signal in the South China Sea, in Hong Kong and Macau, signal 3 still in force, and the orange typhoon warning highest issued in Taishan City, yellow typhoon warning in Zhuhai, Jiangmen, as well as Maoming, as well as Yangjiang City.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and to the team for that hour of coverage. We're finishing up here now. We'll have more updates throughout the day, most likely, throughout the night, local time, and into tomorrow morning and beyond, of course. We'll probably have more live events coming up. We're not sure exactly on timings yet, but we'll let you know on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on social media, search Force13, and you can also join our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13 for tropical weather chat around the world. That's it from us. We'll see you again soon. Have a good evening.